There's a searching for a story. There's a searching for meaning and narrative. There is a journey to be told, a national story, and you can't tell it without the Catholic Church. In 3 years' time, 1829, we celebrate 200 years of Catholic emancipation in this country. We felt very distinctly with this festival that its purpose very clearly was to be a festival of Catholic life in the UK. The festival's goal is that every person that comes can really grapple with their own personal response to the call to holiness. Catholic life is rich and it's beautiful, but it's sort of becoming resurgent at this time and stepping into the Catholic Church, stepping into this sort of role of leadership as the prominent Christian faith now in the UK.
Welcome to Into the Truth, the podcast from the Catholic Truth Society. My name is Pier Paolo Finaldi, and I'm your host for this podcast. And today I am very happy to be able to welcome a good friend and collaborator on many wonderful projects, John Withers.
Thanks, Pier.
Welcome, John. So John is the director of the WeBelieve Festival, which is what we're going to mainly speak about today. Tell us, how did you end up in this position, and what's it all about?
Yeah, interesting for me, I grew up going to festivals. It's been a theme through my life. My dad was really invested in the pro-life cause, and he would hire a marquee, old-fashioned traditional canvas, and he would take it to some Christian festivals where the pro-life message was maybe not very familiar. And so I grew up as a little boy being in these unusual spaces, in these big tents, and my mum and dad were social workers and counsellors, and they would be able to bring that, the great gift really, and compassionate role in that circle. Anyway, so I experienced festivals and grew up, got involved in Youth 2000. There was a summer festival there, helped to develop that over a period of about a decade. And then in the recent years, I was teaching, but something, I guess, nagging in me was a sense of what was all that for. And so personally, myself and my wife, really praying into that, asking the Lord what that was all about. And then an opportunity came with Monsignor John Armitage, who I know you know well, probably familiar to some of our listeners. And obviously he's got a great track record of ingenuity and mission in the UK. And we'd known each other in Walsingham, and he said, John, look, there's an opportunity to explore something here. And so so I stepped out of teaching, I guess, so it was a pull factor rather than being pushed out of it. I quite enjoyed it. But then into the festival and trying to plan something that could really uniquely bring the church together. So I guess in a way there's a lot of doors that have been opened by God's grace. But hey, I sit here today, occupationally working as a festival director, which is quite niche, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, tell me a bit about you've said a little bit about the experience of the festivals that you had growing up. I mean, my sort of analogous experience, I suppose, was going to kind of World Youth Days and things like that, which tended to become, especially for a young person, growing up in their faith, a moment of real sort of camaraderie with other Christians, with other Catholics. You might feel that you were like a bit kind of alone in your own school or even local area, parish even. But then you'd get to these sort of big festivals. You see, the church is alive. The church there's many people. There's lots of different realities and experiences beyond the one that I myself was involved in, say. And they tended to be. It's incredible how many of my old sort of friends, my old church friends, whenever we get together, what we'll end up talking about is those kind of big festivals.
Few days.
Yeah. So what was your experience? What did it do for your sort of faith life?
Yeah, it reminds me of the stories of Saint John Paul II taking out a group of students, and those sort of memories, or Saint Pier Giorgio Frassati. Again, he was famous for his group of friends, and the time they spent together shaped I know he died young, but the rest of them really lived a lifelong friendship built around those memories. For me, a huge shape on my life, really. I was really blessed to, I mentioned my dad already, nice that I had no intention of bringing him up, but it was great he's going up as a theme. He said when I was about 9, he was looking for something that would help his kids remain in the faith. Interesting how it's kind of defensive. It's like keep them remaining because the culture, secular culture, is so strong, isn't it? And he discovered something called Youth 2000, which was a great gift for our family growing up. Probably for the next that formative stage, then from 10 through till about 18, whilst I was still at home, and then into my student years, I was really involved in mission activity in the UK. So taking the gospel, and particularly the Eucharistic and Marian devotions, which are so central to Youth 2000's mission, but which had maybe fallen a little bit in the 70s, 80s, 90s, had sort of, particularly Eucharistic adoration was less common in parishes. And so it was a real work to rejuvenate some of those practices. For me, it meant that I had a formation beyond my parish. And I'm not sure there was a great amount of it offered in my parish. Some wonderful priests I knew, but not a lot of sort of cultural Catholic activity.
So after I think we can fairly say was the great success of the first WeBelieve Festival.
Thank you.
I'm sure it was looking hairy at certain points. It always does when you put on these things.
Did, yeah.
But tell us a bit about what was the origin of it, and I mean, it came at a very important kind of anniversary, didn't it? So tell us a little bit about the origin of the festival itself.
Yeah, I mean the anniversary is crazy in itself. So there's actually a confluence of several different anniversaries. You have obviously the year of last year, 2025 was the year of hope. This fantastic jubilee, which obviously we began with Pope Francis and we ended with Pope Leo. I mean, that's a whole nother thing, the change of Pope in the middle of the year. We also celebrated 1700 years of the Council of Nicaea. And lots of people were like, wow, we believe, you named it perfectly. We actually, that's God's providence. We named it before we realized that it was this great celebration. And there was this fantastic moment in my head where I was reading something from the Pope and I was like, no way. We called it We Believe, and here it is. So, yeah. So again, God takes a lot of credit for.
So the Council of Nicaea being where we had the first sort of great
the laying down
expression of our faith,
laying down an agreement of the creed, which beautifully gave us a structure, a framework within which to gather the church in this festival. It's quite difficult, just practically, to bring the church, and by that we're really talking about the Catholic communion in the UK. So who does that include? Obviously we have the general sort of Novus Ordo parishes, the diocesan structure, the different rites beyond that. So we have the Ukrainian Catholics and the Syro-Malabar, Syro-Malankara, Chaldeans and Maronites. There's quite an array in this country of people who are in communion with the church. They are part of the Catholic Church, but maybe as a normal, mass-going Catholic in this country, might not clock that actually we have distinction, and at the same time we are part of a universal faith. So that's one thing, and then beyond that, there's expressions, aren't there? So we have beautifully within the Catholic Church, we have more charismatic expression, and then we also have very contemplative expressions too. And of course, the Latin Mass community were a big part of what we did as well last year. So I think it was a real wonderful God incidence, a confluence of events that enabled a festival that could genuinely gather the church together.
So what so I think this was the brainchild of Monsignor Armitage. So tell us a little bit about what his kind of idea was behind it.
Yeah, Monsignor John will talk about the power of prayer, and we've talked a lot over the last year about the third spring, the revival of faith happening in this country. And it seems, anyone who's spoken to him will know that he's massive on the third spring, this sense that we had Augustine and the faith arriving, preceding him, but then, really championed by him.
Then we had Augustine of Canterbury for anybody beyond our shores who's thinking of Augustine here.
Yeah, good to point that out. Then the second spring, post-Reformation, with Cardinal John Henry Newman, and that's that revival of faith which brought so many Anglicans into the church. At that time, also a huge amount of Irish and Italian immigrants. And then this potential third spring, I mean, he wouldn't use the word potential, he would just say we're in a third spring of the faith. And anecdotally, it seems to be bearing out, and that the fruit is around us. But just to bring it back to the festival, his insight really was that to have a space where we could come together to celebrate the church. So it was also the 175th anniversary of that second spring sermon that Cardinal John Henry Newman preached, now St. John Henry Newman, preached at Oscott. And it's a real gift to have a festival that can communicate the church in a time when people are asking questions. There's an openness to the church, a seeking, a curiosity. I like to think of, people who are curious, that we talk about the non-church, don't we, or the unchurched, and that doesn't. I think it's easy to think, oh gosh, they must hate the church. Well, that's obviously probably a very small subsection, and within the wider category of unchurched, many people are curious, and a growing number of people. So it's the festival in a way is an open door. Come and experience the church in a very full way.
Because Monsignor John has this other role as the head of the Guild of Our Lady of Ransom. So say something about that, because it's a really interesting and like very specifically sort of English apostolate, I suppose.
Yeah.
Tell us a bit about the history of that and what it was all about.
The Guild has been around for 150 years. And its main aim in its origin was the evangelisation of England and Wales. So the preaching of the gospel, the bringing of Christ to the people of England again, following on that second spring of Cardinal Newman and his collaborators at that time. The Guild's work has obviously changed over the years. It became, within 13 years of founding, by 1900, it was the largest association of Catholics in the UK, so over 100,000 members. And these were ordinary people, I'll say, like me and you, but people with families who just put their pennies together, and they gave to the Guild, and the Guild worked with the rest of the church to build churches, build schools, particularly to lead pilgrimages and processions. So outward signs of Catholic faith that had been invisible for 350 years.
If not illegal.
Or had become Anglican and therefore, not Catholic. So the Guild, there's a journal, you can find it online if you Google the Guild, but the historian, I forget her name now, sorry, but she has this great little line about them. She says, the Guild at that time was the catalyst for large-scale Catholic public action, essentially. Like if you were going to see large gatherings of Catholics in the late 1800s, it was organised by the Guild.
The idea, I think, that I remember he spoke about at last year's festival was that we're in a situation in the UK where I think the established church seems to be, in a sense, kind of withdrawing from public life, or at least a kind of countercultural witness to Christ, and leaving a kind of space for the Catholic Church to really come in and take up her sort of historical role within this country's history, which was as the faith of the people. In the end, England was a super faithful, super devoted, Marian, Petrine country that was sort of cut off from its own roots, and the Guild of Our Lady of Ransom was set up to re-establish that. And it's incredible how in a sort of historical period which has seen sort of secularization on an unprecedented scale, suddenly has almost sort of been too successful and left people asking questions that really the church has the answer to.
There's a searching for a story. There's a searching for meaning and narrative, like what's our national story? And okay, there's maybe concern about where we're going, but there's as much sort of concern to know who we are. And that's a journey of digging into our past. Ultimately, I used to be a history teacher. There is a journey to be told, a national story, and you can't tell it without the Catholic Church. And fascinatingly, again, in God's providence, in 3 years' time, 1829, we celebrate 200 years of Catholic emancipation in this country. How many people ever think about the fact that Catholics were emancipated?
Emancipation from real prejudice. We couldn't vote, couldn't go to university, couldn't take up kind of positions in governmental positions, or you couldn't build churches, all these things, and that kind of stopped at a certain moment and gave the opportunity, slowly and subtly initially, but hopefully today a bit more kind of openly and brazenly and with more courage.
A great little story that sort of adds light to that is in Southwark Cathedral, this diocese, not far from here. There's a plaque on the wall, and I'm sure you've seen it, but it tells the story of the cathedral. And it says that there was a following the emancipation, there's a desire to reestablish cathedrals and dioceses, and there's a huge protest that happens in London, and over 50,000 people march, and it's an anti-Catholic protest. And this is like 190 years ago, maybe. It's enormous, huge protest, and they meet on the site of Southwark Cathedral. That land is then bought a few years later, and the Catholic cathedral is built, and one of the major archdioceses is begun. So, yeah, there's hope.
And I mean, the importance of particular kind of places to our history, and also as a springboard for the new evangelization. I think, the fact that this festival takes place in Oscott is obviously, there's no coincidence. So tell us a bit about why that particular place was chosen, what its significance is, and why it's such a great place to have it.
Yeah, well, I used to help organise festivals in Walsingham, and that people joke, we've been there together. People joke that it's the corner of nowhere, and it really, it takes anywhere in the country, you're like minimum 2 hours to get to. Not a reason not to go to Walsingham. If you want to go on pilgrimage, you should go to Walsingham.
As part of its charm.
Yeah, any pilgrimage is like hard work, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's the sort of beauty of it. But to try and get rid of as many obstacles as possible, we thought, well, let's find somewhere that's central in the UK, and also somewhere that's sort of central to the story of the church. And Cardinal Nichols, he recently, not so recently, a little while ago, I think when Pope Benedict visited, said, look, this is the heart of the church in England and Wales. And I think he's referring to that second spring. It's the heart of the church that is reborn at that time. And anyone who's not had a read of Cardinal Newman's Second Spring Sermon, it's quite short, and it's really poetically and beautifully put.
We have recently republished.
I didn't know that.
An edition of it, so do have a look at that.
Fantastic.
On the website.
Anyway, so yeah, St Mary's Oscott. I mean, it's stunning. You've got the red brick college designed by Pugin the Younger, I think, and it's just a fantastic venue. The generosity of the rector and the team there is incredible. They're very much sort of major partners with the Guild in delivering the festival. It's their generosity that enables it to happen. So to be in a place that's sort of centrally located, easy for people to get to, when you're there, it's just like beating like Catholic life. I mean, the architecture, the art around you, obviously it's then filled with monks and nuns and priests and Catholic families and young people. It's an extraordinary experience of the Catholic Church in England and Wales.
And at the same time, it is a kind of a place which had this incredibly important sort of moment. Not only the visit of the Pope, but of our newly minted Doctor of the Church, who gave this message saying, now it's time for the Church to again, give its message full strength to a country which is kind of desperate for it. So tell us a bit about how the whole thing kind of worked, and because one of the beautiful things, I think, and this is no slur on our brothers and sisters over in the States, who really kind of dominate the discourse, and very talented people and stuff. But it was great to see that it was a lot of homegrown kind of talent, people who the dizzying number of speakers and subjects that were covered.
Yeah. No, I'm glad you pulled that out. We're really blessed with American support over here, aren't we? If we can bring over speakers and musicians and artists. So we'll begin with that. It's a great gift to be able to do that. We felt very distinctly with this festival that its purpose very clearly was to be a festival of Catholic life in the UK. And so to do that authentically, we decided we'd have a really high bar on, nearly everybody contributing should be British. There are some exceptions to that. We were really blessed to have the daughter of St. Janna Moller join us, who I know you know very well. That was an incredible gift, and she gets to the heart of what the festival is about, really, an opportunity to re-examine and respond to the call to holiness in your life. That's really in terms of the drive of the content, that's the focus. For each person to sort of wrestle with, well, where am I? God's put me somewhere. He's given me family and friends, or my work, my network. This is the social clubs I'm part of. This is my context, and this is where God wants me to make the best of it, and that is to be holy. So beautiful to have Dr. Jana Moller join us and sort of share on that theme of the everyday holiness of her mum as a doctor and a mother, and her father as well, who she's really keen should be put forward for canonization himself. So on the whole, it was a great celebration of the British Church. We're really confident and comfortable in that this is a gathering of the church in the UK. So the great things that happen all around us from initiatives and ministries, much like your own and what happens here, that they can, Catholics from around the country can come together and experience it. It's not a conference, so it's not just talking. It is a festival, so it's very much relational, experiential. People get a sense of like, wow, that's a really good idea. We could do that back home in our parish or in our community. So it's a festival that quite rightly, I think, is waving the flag for maybe the comparatively small initiatives in Britain, but hey, they're growing.
You had a very interesting and very kind of clever way of dividing up the speakers and the subjects that were covered. Went for these sort of the three transcendentals: truth, goodness, and beauty, and you had a tent, a marquee that was sort of dedicated to each one of them. So, tell us a bit what maybe were the highlights of last year's festival and what we can look forward to in this year's.
The transcendentals are how we experience God, and so as a festival, like I said, primarily it's responding to the presence of God in my life and the call to respond to that, to be holy. So how we experience God just felt the natural way to sort of structure the spaces. We actually have about 12 venues at the festival, so only 3 of them are named Truth, Goodness, and Beauty, but they're meaty ones. And I guess the majority of content they offer is for an adult audience. There are some venues that are family and teen sort of focused. Then there's also prayerful spaces like the chapel and the big top where everyone gathers for communal liturgies. Then there's also sort of the more social fun spaces, the cafe and the marketplace and the quad stage. There's a lot of exciting things going on. But Truth, Goodness, and Beauty just seemed a really providential again, but also kind of obvious way to enable such a broad gathering to have at the same time sort of understandable focus. So 2025, what did they look like? Let's start with the goodness marquee. Well, I mean, it could have been a free-for-all of like all of the great and wonderful Catholic charities, couldn't it? And that would have been fab in itself. We wanted it to have a bit more structure, so we sort of themed it around Catholic social teaching, the principles of Catholic social teaching, also how to live a good Christian life. What does it mean? So we sort of set the parameters. We looked at the works of mercy, spiritual and corporal. Some of the great content in there came from Together for the Common Good. I think you are speaking. We have spoken to Jenny. She's fantastic. We also had a non-Catholic, Lord Maurice Glassman, who is sort of the pioneer of Blue Labour, just fantastic insight. He recently wrote an article on Christ is King for the Times, and just extraordinary to hear a Jewish Labour scholar articulate the essential sort of role that Christ has as essentially, governance over our land and our politics. The Truth marquee had a great array of Dominicans,
especially,
but also Archbishop Longley spoke in there as well, the home bishop there in Birmingham, and I know you interviewed Father Guy Nichols of the Oratory as well, and Sir James Macmillan joined us in the Beauty marquee, alongside the wonderful voice of the Southwell Consort and Father Patrick van der Voors and his fantastic Christian art initiative. So, I mean, a lot of those rejoining us again this year, plus some additions. So, who to pull out? I'm really excited about Brother Alexander Bailey, who's an Oratorian, who's just an absolute treasure trove on St. Augustine of Hippo. And he's going to look at living in the truth, your life being ordered by truth, and that's going to be really working with St. Augustine in that session. There's also an interesting conversation with Archbishop Longley about Blessed Dominic Barbary and the conversion of England. So this is Blessed Dominic helped St. John Henry Newman to come into the faith. He literally received him at Littlemore. So I can't wait to hear, because I know Archbishop Bernard. He's been there some time now. So he welcomed Pope Benedict when he came, but he also led the movement towards the canonization of St. John Henry Newman. So great to have him there speak about Blessed Dominic Barbary, who he knows very well. In the beauty marquee, we've got some great contributors joining us. One academic from Cambridge, Bonnie Lander Johnson, who just speaks on a fantastic array of topics, but a focus on women in Catholic literature.
She'll be on the pod soon as well.
Oh, will she? Okay, fantastic. In a way, the festival is like the podcast in person, isn't it? So,
well, yeah. I mean, we recorded a few live podcasts there last year, and we'll do the same again this year. But yeah, speaking to James Macmillan, that was one of the sort of one of my certainly on my bucket list to speak to somebody whose work I've loved for many years.
It's a good looking video as well.
It's a great podcast. Cool. Do look at that one.
There is just on I was speaking about Saint Jana and her daughter joining us, Dr. Jana Moller. That tangible connection to holiness is something that we're really keen to explore. So last year we had a chap called. I don't know if you know the story of Pedro Ballester, the young Opus Dei chap who there's a great push now for his cause to be opened, particularly, obviously the early stages, but his life and his influence on friends of mine, maybe of yours. But
my sons kind of know his family. Yeah.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah, just an incredible story of holiness in a young man. And sort of relates to Carlo and Pier Giorgio as well in the recent saint.
It was an opportunity both to touch kind of the history of holiness in our church and the place, but also the people. That we can be at kind of one remove from sanctity, and it's an inspirational thing.
Well, we don't know, do we?
Yeah.
Hopefully, the person next to you is going to become a saint.
Yeah.
That's what we've got to hope for. I would say that the festival's goal is that every person that comes can really grapple with their own personal response to the call to holiness, and it is unique to each person. So to hear as many stories as possible from people who knew saints very intimately, but also people who love saints. Get to know the saints, right? Part of the joy of the festival, particularly when I think of the children's content, is just getting people in to talk about their favorite saint. So last year, I thought one of the best sessions that happened at the festival was Archbishop John Wilson, the bishop here, speaking to about 200 children. As an ex-teacher, I marveled at the way he kept them all in rapture for about 45 minutes. But he told them the story of Pier Giorgio, Saint Pier Giorgio, and it was so beautiful. And I think they took away from it very simple truths, like he liked mountains, he liked friendship, and he liked God. And it was a really straightforward thing. But yeah, getting to know the saints historically and also today is a big
and it's not just talks either, is it? So there was a lot of music going on.
It gets to that point I said about liturgy and culture. I mean, what is Catholic life? Catholic life is vibrant, it's flourishing. I love to ponder the idea of Merry England, this medieval Catholic. I know it could be a bit utopian, okay? But I've been in the classrooms where modern history is taught, and it's the opposite of utopian when it comes to the Catholic Church in the Middle Ages. It's like, it's quite a negative portrayal. So I think for us to think like, wow, like Catholic life is rich and it's beautiful, and yes, the festival tries to show this by being a festival.
No, it did show it. Being there, it literally, you would just sort of walk from one place to the other, and there was so much going on, and there was really expressions of the faith in every style and every kind of mode.
I would say part of that is stepping forwards. It's combat division by really stepping into the unity of the church. I grew up a bit like squeamish about the word unity. It wasn't something I was like, woohoo, unity. But it's actually, may they all be one. Jesus' priestly prayer. It's just so profound. And the more I sort of journey in my faith, the more central that becomes for me. And it's become a real, a real measure of the festival. How how can we all be one? We have to be in the same place at the same time. And that's, it could have been a 1 day thing. Well, the reason for it being a 3/4 day thing is the opportunity to dwell together. And that's when, you can get a cup of coffee together. You can have a chat. One of the great things in the feedback, we had over 500 pieces of feedback. And one of them was, how many sessions did you go to? And actually it was like way less than I hoped it would be. But the reality is the real positive of that was people just loved spending time together. That experience of dwelling as a church moves us forward in communion. It strengthens our communion, but it also moves us forward in mission. And you spoke about the church sort of becoming resurgent at this time and stepping into the Catholic Church, stepping into this sort of role of leadership as the prominent Christian faith now in the UK. And how do we do that? Because that involves changing culture, and that doesn't happen by accident. You have to be very intentional to step in with desire to grow a culture that is strengthening communion, that is looking for missional opportunity. Being bold in the proclamation of the faith. I think the festival is an exciting thing, and I hope I don't know, but I hope it continues to grow.
No, I was really struck by the sheer number of for example, I'm particularly fond of music, and there was just so much kind of going on and of such high quality. So tell us a bit about what people who come are likely to be able to see and listen to.
Yeah, we were really blessed to have the Southwell Consort join us, who they are the Latin Mass Society's choir. I think that's
they did a polyphonic mass.
They did
on the Sunday that was just out of this world, literally.
Yeah, a lot of feedback about how that was just maybe one of the most extraordinary masses that anyone's ever been to. And I was actually outside doing things, so I missed it. But hey ho.
No, I was inside, and it was pretty amazing. Yeah.
I will say the homily from Archbishop Wilson at that mass is online, and that's worth looking. He gives like a bullet point of how we step forward as a church. I think it's pretty cool. And then from that end, there were lots of other little polyphonic singers, trios and duos and soloists. There were also sort of more contemporary sounds from bands. For example, the One Hope Project are quite a big thing within the charismatic part of the church. Also, within the Jesus Youth movement, we had 99.1, who I loved it. I didn't know 99.1 before the festival, and I got to know them, and I was like, wow, you guys are great. Let's get you there doing your music, and so they do some of these contemporary songs, which, some of which come from a Protestant background, but can be done really wonderfully and beautifully in a sort of paraliturgical setting, but also as they were doing it on like stages in the quad stage, just surrounded by red brick, is just a really great space for families and kids to enjoy good, energetic music and have a good time. So it's an interesting balance.
There was the Syro Malabar did sort of their own sort of music and dance as well.
And the Ukrainians as well. They've got this amazing sort of, what do you call it? There's 4 of them singers. My words escape me, but they've got this amazing group of a quartet. That's the word I'm looking for. They've got this amazing quartet who came in and sang some stunning pieces, polyphonic music in the chapel. And again, these are sandwiching a Ukrainian divine liturgy and a Syro Malabar solemn vespers, and it's a really rich program.
It was a real opportunity to see the kind of universality of the church, and to. I think I said this on another podcast. It was an opportunity to really sort of review the forces that the church has at her disposal in the UK. For the new evangelisation. And to be honest, I came away thinking, I think we've got some real.
We've got something.
We've got something. We've got something to say, and we've got people who say it well, and so. We're kind of coming up to the second festival, and so tell me what are you kind of most looking forward to? What would you say that people should really kind of come for this time?
Yeah, first of all, come for the extraordinary experience of the communion of the Catholic Church in this country. We each go to our Sunday Mass experience and receive beautifully our Lord in sacrament and in spirit, and this festival just gives you an opportunity to see what happens in other parishes around you and around the country that you might not see in your parish and in your life unless you come to something like this. So that would be number one, the experience of the Catholic communion in this country. Number two would just be a fantastic array of contributors. I've just put sort of the final dots to the program. It's a mammoth work, and I think I could sleep for a month of Sundays. But it's just marvelous. And it's a celebration of the British Catholic Church and the remarkable initiatives and movements and ministries that exist within it. And there's so much life. So come and receive the life that the Lord is pouring into the church through the Holy Spirit in these different charisms and expressions of the faith. And then lastly, I think my residing thing is the missional dimension. So many people came in their feedback from the festival, wrote saying, "Oh, I'm so glad I brought my non-Catholic spouse," or "I wish I'd brought my non-Catholic spouse because this is perfect." I met Protestants there. There were a couple on the team also just around the festival who the festival was like a sort of final domino for them in the scales coming back on like the fullness, the truth, the beauty of the Catholic Church. There's one chap on the team who just said to me, "Everything I thought I knew about the Catholic Church, but also Christianity, is like changed." And he's since become a Catholic. And I sort of always caveat that with it seems like nothing extra in this year where numbers of people joining the church have gone through the roof in lots of dioceses, but it has that capacity. When you see the church, a bit like World Youth Day, I think we've probably both experienced taking people a bit lukewarm in their faith to World Youth Day, and that experience of the church just is transformative. So it is an evangelistic experience, and you could think, how could it be evangelistic when it's in a Catholic seminary? It just is. You have to come and experience it.
And also in a country where I feel a bit depressed about how things are going in the country. The economy is not going well. The politics seems kind of broken.
I'm glad we didn't talk about that.
all sorts of things. Where the UK seems to be in a bit of decline, and yet I get when I come to something like this, the church is the only thing here that I feel sort of positive about.
Wow,
and there was a real kind of opportunity to see the church at its best. So this is a festival for everybody, no?
Yeah.
From old to young. You don't have to camp.
No, you don't have to. Yeah.
I mean, so what are the arrangements for anyone else who wants to come?
There are, however you want to come. You can
do a day ticket.
You can come for a day. You could come for part of a day. You could come for the weekend and stay in your home, travel in. If obviously it's in Birmingham, so there's hundreds of thousands of people just on the doorstep. You could come for the weekend and stay in a local hotel. Many do, Airbnb it, and all those things. So really, however you want to work it, it's possible. We put this where we put it in the way that we did it. We structured it as we did with content for different ages and thresholds of the faith, because we really believe that we've created an event that has something for everybody. And one beautiful way of thinking of it is a big parish mission. And they've kind of disappeared, haven't they? Parish missions. When you think of like the visiting religious who would come in and preach the gospel to you, and it would give your priest a little break, and it would also just invigorate the parish. They're quite hard to come by these days.
So brilliant. So where can people find out? Where can people book for this year's festival?
WeBelieveFestival.com is the place to go. We have the easiest booking system in the world, I would like to say at this point. So make good use of it.
And what are the dates for this year?
24th to the 27th of July. So Friday to a Monday morning. But the meat of the content is Friday afternoon, Saturday, Sunday. Yeah.
Brilliant. Well, CTS will be there. We'll be sponsoring the Truth Tent.
Yeah, thank you.
And come and see us there. We'll be recording some podcasts as well. So
just a massive thank you to you, Piero, and to CTS, because I think the work you do here is invaluable we've talked a lot about the renewal of the church, and like I said, the festival is an in-person experience, but what you're doing, have done historically through your books, but also now through your podcast is amazing. You're at the in a sense at the cutting edge of the revival of Catholic life in this country.
And a shout out to Monsignor John and his sort of vision for this. It's been a real sort of fillip for the church here, and long may it continue.
Thank you. Yeah.
Great. So thank you so much, John, and we look forward to meeting up in Oscott. And do come and say hello to the CTS stall that's there and join the live podcast recordings. Do like and subscribe this channel, and thanks very much, John.
Thank you.